part 2 of the pantry and freezer stocking series, specifically talking about hurricane prep. It should have gone up last week, but we got sick. We've all been down for about a week now, and I'm just now feeling up to editing and working on some stuff. But in this week's video, I'll be talking about what we've done for hurricane prep, what our plan is, and some of the reasons why we do things, and just some things to think about. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this week's video. Where we live, our area is very vulnerable to hurricanes, and with hurricanes come power outages and a whole host of other issues. And I just wanted to share some of the things that we're doing to prepare for a hurricane. It's been about 5 years. I think it's been 5 years since we had a hurricane, and it was Hurricane Harvey, and we weren't really affected by it how some people were. The flooding was horrible. Our house didn't flood, thankfully. Where we were was high enough up, and we didn't actually have the hurricane side that further down the Texas coast did. It was mostly just unbelievable amounts of rain. The last hurricane that felt like a hurricane for us was, I believe, Hurricane Ike. Yeah, I think that was in 2008. Yes, I believe it was 2008. I'll have to double check. But we were without power for 2 weeks, and thankfully I was old enough to watch and see what my mom and dad did and how they kept us from losing all the food in our freezers and all that. So I'm going to go over some of that. Now, let's talk about hurricane prep. This has been a pretty big discussion around our house the last couple weeks, because this is the first time that we've actually had this much to worry about. Not worry about, to prepare for in case a hurricane comes. Like I said, the last one we were in was Hurricane Harvey, and all we really got was just a lot of rain and a lot of water. But being that we are in the country now and we are not in town, the way that we prepare is going to be a little different than when we lived in town. We do have a generator, and I'm very thankful because I know my freezer and my fridge will be able to run. I will not lose my food. But if I didn't have a generator, what were the things that I would do? Well, if you lose power and you keep your freezer closed, your food will be good for 24 hours. It will not start to thaw for 24 hours if you lose power. So that is very comforting, because there have been times when we've lost power here. And of course, my first thought was my freezer. Oh my word, because we have our year's worth of meat in the freezer. A lot of our veggies are in the freezer. There's a lot of food there. But knowing that I have a 24-hour cushion before I have to figure out something to get my freezer back up and running, that helps. Another thing you can do to help your freezer stay cold longer is to freeze gallons of water. So anywhere that you have a free space in your freezer, if you can stick a gallon of water in there, do that. Your freezer will run more efficiently, because a freezer that's full doesn't have to work as hard as a freezer that has empty space. And the ice in the jugs will help keep the freezer colder longer. So that's one of the things that I always do. If I think there's a storm coming, I will make sure that I have water frozen in the freezer. And then later, if you need the water, you can take the milk jugs out or whatever, thaw them, and then you'll have water. What else? But yes, like I said, we do have a generator, so I will be able to run my freezer and my fridge, and I will be able to do laundry in the event we have a storm and we're without power for a week or two. Now, as far as water, making sure we have enough water, we will be buying a little more, buying water and putting up just in case we need it. Thankfully, where we are, our water company has really good backup generators, And even back in 2008 during Hurricane Ike, we were only without water for about this long, and then it was back on immediately. So I'm not too worried about not having water out here in the country like I would be if I was in town. So that's not gonna be that big of an issue, but we are putting back some water. I want to get some water, some barrels, like some 55-gallon barrels or something like that, and fill them up with water and have them out by my feed room so that I'll be able to water the animals if I need to. If we don't have water, that way I will have something for them. But as far as water, I'm not too worried about that. And if we do lose electricity, and for whatever reason we're not able to get the generator running quick enough, I have a gas stove. We'll be able to cook whatever we want. I have a French press, so I will have coffee. You know, we gotta have the coffee. It's not a good thing if I don't have my coffee. Back during the freeze, the Valentine's Day freeze last year, the whole moving again and selling the house and all that, it's kind of making everything run together. So I have to stop and think about, okay, when did this actually happen? Back during the Valentine's Day freeze, we did not lose power except for like one day. We had a little short space of maybe 6 hours that we didn't have power. And we had a gas stove in town, so it wasn't a big deal. I could cook. But the one thing that I did not have, I didn't have a French press or like a drippolator or something. So that one day when it was so cold and I wanted coffee, I didn't have any way to do it. So I immediately fixed that. I bought a French press. I have a gas stove. I can have coffee if the lights go out. So that's another thing to think about, is if you don't have a gas stove, how are you going to cook? So it might be a good idea to invest in a little small camping stove that runs off of a propane bottle. That way you can at least cook or warm up water for a bath or any number of things. So that's something to think about. What source will I use to cook my food if we lose electricity? Knowing that I have plenty of non-perishable stuff in my pantry gives me comfort, because I know that I can come up with food. I can cook. I won't have to cook everything in my freezer if the lights go out, that type thing. Because you know, you read some of those horror stories, people, they lose electricity, they can't get a generator, and so they have to just start cooking all of this food out of their freezer so that it doesn't go to waste. Thankfully, we've never run into that before. But I do feel more prepared this hurricane season than I ever have before in my life, other than when I was still living at home with Mom and Daddy, and I didn't have to think about all this kind of stuff. But now that I'm a grown-up mama and I have kids and I have chickens and we have stuff that depends on us, you really have to stop and think. And we're not a family that evacuates. We ride it out, just because we want to be home and we want to know as soon as it's over exactly what happened and what needs to be fixed. Because a lot of times if there is damage, if you can fix it really quick, you can keep it from exploding into something even worse. And we don't want to be away from our house, because unfortunately there are people that go around after hurricanes are over and loot deserted houses, and it's a whole ordeal. So we would just much rather stay home and ride it out. So from the beginning of June to the end of November, every year we live with an eye on the Gulf. And most of the time we don't get it, but some years we do. And it's been a little while since we've had a storm, so I just want to be extra vigilant and extra prepared this year, because making sure that I have enough stuff is a big deal to me, because with the climate, how things have changed just since 2020 with all of the shortages, and every time I go to the store, there's usually at least 1 or 2 things that I need that the store is out of. And especially with hurricane season, you'll watch a storm and it'll be going this way for a week, and then 2 days before it's supposed to make landfall, it'll make a turn. And everybody goes into panic mode trying to buy hurricane snacks and make sure that they have everything they need. Well, we can't risk it right now. With all of the shortages, a lot of people could end up in a bind because everything that's not able to come in, or it could be an absolute disaster. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like it is so important to just go ahead and be prepared and have all of these things in place, so that if the storm does suddenly turn and start heading for you at the last minute, it's not a big deal. All you have to do is just make sure your stuff around the house is secure, make sure your gas tanks are topped off, and then just go on from there. And that's another thing that I forgot. I didn't write it down. Make sure that you have spare gas cans filled, and if you have propane tanks, make sure your propane tanks are filled, because especially if you're in town can run out of gas, town can run out of propane, and out here in the sticks, if all the gas is gone and the trucks can't get in, it can be bad. So make sure that you have all of those things done. I hope this wasn't too much of a doom and gloom video for y'all, but some people never even think about it until it's time to handle something, and then panic sets in. And if we can avoid that, our experiences will be much better and we won't be as stressed out, and we will be able to take care of our families better because we know that we've prepared and we've planned. And when mama is calmer, the kids are calmer, husband's calmer, and it's just a much better experience all the way around. My memories of hurricanes growing up, honestly, are some of the most fun memories that I have, because it was like we were camping in our own house. Yeah, we were slightly miserable because we didn't have electricity, but after Hurricane Ike went through, almost immediately a cool front blew in. So it was pleasant. We weren't too hot. We were able to run our attic fan off the generator. It was like a party. We had people coming over, visiting. It was just so much fun. And I don't want to be so stressed out that if we do have a storm, my kids have negative memories and are terrified. I want them to have the same fun memories that I did, that I have from growing up, because mom and dad were prepared and they had things handled ahead of time. So, main takeaway from this: make sure your pantry is stocked. It's not that expensive, it's not that hard to do, and go ahead and buy you a couple cases of water and have your hurricane plan in place. So, I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I hope you learned something. If you have any tips or things that you do in your hurricane or natural disaster plan, put them in the comments. I would love to read them. You can follow me on Instagram. I post there a couple times a week. And if you aren't already a subscriber, I would love it if you would subscribe. It lets me know you enjoy what I share here. And I will see you again next week, hopefully. Hopefully we're all about to be well. And hope you have a great week. Bye.